Unique Kids.
Hello, lovely souls. Welcome back. I'm so happy to see you again. Did you enjoy our last adventure? Well, get ready, because today's story is even more exciting. Before we dive in, I have a little question for you. Are you ready? I know you are, champ. Have you ever been told an important rule to follow? Maybe at home, your parents say, no running inside the house. Or at school, your teacher says, raise your hand before speaking. Rules help keep us safe and help us do what's right. But did you know that God gave the biggest and most important rules ever? Today, we're going to hear about those big instructions, straight from God Himself. The Israelites have been traveling through the wilderness for a long time. They've seen God do amazing things. He rescued them from Egypt, parted the Red Sea, and gave them food from heaven. Now, their journey has led them to a very special place, Mount Sinai. This is where something incredible happens. Are you ready to find out what? Let's go. The Israelites finally arrive at Mount Sinai and set up their camp at the bottom of the mountain. Imagine hundreds, no, thousands, of tents covering the ground. Families cooking, children playing, and everyone settling down. It feels like a normal day, but something big is about to happen. God calls Moses up the mountain. Now, climbing a mountain is no small task. Moses carefully steps over rocks and keeps climbing higher and higher until he reaches the top. There, God speaks to him. Wow! Can you imagine that? God tells Moses, get the people ready. I am going to speak to them. How do you think the Israelites felt knowing that God was going to talk to them? Would you feel excited? Nervous? Maybe even a little scared? Well, you just have to keep watching to find out. 3 days later, early in the morning, something incredible happens. Are you ready? Lightning flashes everywhere. Then, a loud trumpet blast echoes through the air. The whole mountain starts to shake. The people tremble in fear. This is no ordinary day. God's presence is on the mountain. Would you be afraid if you saw that? Imagine standing there, watching the whole mountain shake. It must have been an incredible sight. Wow! Can you imagine standing there, watching lightning flash, hearing thunder roar, and feeling the whole mountain shake? That's exactly what the Israelites experienced. But guess what? God wasn't finished yet. He had something very important to give them, His special instructions, called the 10 Commandments. God tells Moses to come up the mountain, again. That means Moses had to climb all the way back up. Can you imagine climbing up a huge mountain more than once? Phew! Moses must have been very strong. When Moses reaches the top, God gives him something very special, 10 powerful rules for the people to follow. These weren't just any rules. These were God's instructions on how to live a good and righteous life. He even wrote them on stone tablets with His own finger. Wow! That's amazing. Now, are you ready to learn these special rules? Let's go. Interactive teaching of the commandments. Okay, lovely souls, let's make this fun. I'll tell you the commandments, and you can try to remember them with hand motions or a fun way to say them. Let's do it together. 1. Put God first. God wants us to love Him more than anything else. More than our toys, more than TV, more than anything. Can you say, God comes first? 2. Worship only God. God says we shouldn't worship statues or anything else in His place. Only God deserves our love. 3. Respect God's name. God's name is holy. We shouldn't use it carelessly. That means no saying, "Oh my G," just for fun. Instead, let's use God's name with love and respect. 4. Remember the Sabbath. God tells us to take a day of rest and spend time with Him. He wants us to slow down, pray, and worship Him. 5. Honor your parents. God says, listen to your parents. Respect them and obey them. Why do you think that's important? Because they love you and teach you what's right. 6. Do not hurt others. God wants us to be kind, not to fight or hurt others. That means using kind words and gentle hands. 7. Keep marriage special. God says that when two people get married, they should love each other and stay faithful. 8. Do not steal. Stealing is wrong. God wants us to be honest and respect what belongs to others. 9. Always tell the truth. God says lying hurts others. We should always tell the truth, even when it's hard. 10. Do not be jealous. God says, be happy with what you have. When we see our friend's cool new toy, we should be happy for them instead of being jealous. Wow! That was awesome. You all did such a great job learning the 10 Commandments. Now, let's talk about why they're important. Why did God give these rules? God gave these commandments to help us live the best life possible. They teach us how to love Him and love others. Imagine a world where no one lied, no one stole, and everyone was kind. Wouldn't that be amazing? That's exactly what God wants. His commandments help us be the best version of ourselves. Easy formula to remember God's commandments. Now, I know 10 rules might seem like a lot to remember, but don't worry. Here's a simple way to think about them. The 2 big rules. Jesus later explained that the commandments can be summed up into 2 big rules. 1. Love God with all your heart. 2. Love others like yourself. That's it. If you love God, you won't worship idols or misuse His name. And if you love others, you won't lie, steal, or hurt anyone. Now, let's imagine some real-life situations and see how we can follow God's commandments. 1. Honoring your parents. Let's say your mom asks you to clean your room, but you really want to play. What should you do? That's right. You obey her and clean your room first. That's honoring your parents. 2. Not stealing. Your friend has a cool toy that you really, really want. Should you take it when they're not looking? Exactly. You should be happy for your friend and not take what isn't yours. 3. Always telling the truth. Imagine you accidentally break your sister's toy. Should you lie about it? Nope. Even if it's hard, telling the truth is always the right thing to do. Now let's move on to the remaining story of today's video. People's fear. The Israelites hear God's voice. Have you ever heard a voice so loud it made you jump? Or seen lightning so bright it lit up the whole sky? Imagine standing at the bottom of a giant mountain, and suddenly, boom! You hear a voice so powerful that the ground shakes. That's what happened to the Israelites. After God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, He spoke to the people in a voice so mighty, so strong, that they were terrified. They turned to Moses and said, "Moses, you speak to us instead. If God keeps speaking to us, we might not survive." Wow! Can you imagine being so scared that you don't even want to hear God's voice? Let's think about this for a moment. Question for kids. Why do you think the Israelites were so scared? Maybe they weren't used to hearing God's voice in such a powerful way. Or maybe they realized just how mighty and holy God really is. But here's another question for you. Have you ever felt scared when you had to do something important? I know a boy named Jean who felt the same way. Let me tell you his story. John's story, overcoming fear through obedience. John was a bright boy who loved playing soccer. He was fast, smart, and had a great kick. But there was one big problem: he was afraid to play in front of a crowd. One day, his coach came to him and said, "John, you're going to be the team captain for our championship game tomorrow." John's eyes widened. "Me? But coach, I can't. What if I mess up? What if everyone laughs at me?" Coach smiled and said, "John, you have trained hard. Trust in yourself, and most importantly, trust in God. Remember, he tells us, 'Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, for I am with you.'" That night, John remembered one of God's commandments. Do not lie. He thought, if God wants me to always be honest, then that means I should be honest with myself too. I can do this. I just have to trust him. The next day, when it was time for the big game, John took a deep breath. Instead of running away from his fear, he prayed, "God, I'm scared. But I know you are with me. Please help me do my best." And guess what? John played the best game of his life. Not only did he score the winning goal, but he also encouraged his teammates and showed great leadership. He realized that when we trust in God and obey His word, we can overcome even our biggest fears. Lesson: God is powerful and holy, but He loves us. He gives us rules, not to scare us, but to protect us and help us live our best life. Just like John learned to trust God and do his best, we can trust God even when we are afraid. So, we've learned about the 10 Commandments, but was that all God wanted the Israelites to know? Nope. God had more instructions for them. Imagine a city without traffic lights, where cars zoom everywhere with no rules. What would happen? Exactly. There would be chaos, crashes, and lots of trouble. Just like traffic lights keep us safe, God gave more rules to help the Israelites live peacefully. God gives more instructions to Moses. God told Moses about how to build an altar to worship Him properly. Rules about justice, so people would be treated fairly. How to treat others, because kindness matters. God wanted the Israelites to understand that respecting Him also meant respecting each other. Relatable story: the fair and kind class. Let's imagine a school where there are no rules. Sounds fun, right? But what if some kids started pushing others to take their seats? What if people cheated on tests? What if no one waited in line for lunch? One day, in a school just like that, a teacher named Mr. Sam decided to change things. He set some fair rules. 1. Everyone should treat others with kindness. 2. No cheating. Everyone should work hard. 3. If you see someone in need, help them. At first, some kids didn't like the rules. But soon, they realized that the class became a much better place. No one was afraid of getting bullied, and everyone felt safe and respected. God's rules work the same way. He gives us laws, not to make life hard, but to help us live in peace. Let's talk about rules. Now, let's think about rules together. 1. Why do you think rules are important? 2. What happens when there are no rules? It's going to be chaotic. God's laws help us live in a way that brings peace and fairness. Without them, the world would be full of fighting, lying, and unfairness. But with God's rules, we learn to love, help, and respect each other. Wow, friends! You've learned so much today. God's commandments aren't just old rules, they are still important for us today. If we follow them, we will be happier, kinder, and closer to God. Can you say this with me? I will love God and love others. Amazing! Remember, God gave us these commandments because He loves us, and He wants the best for us. Alright, lovely souls. Before we go on, here's a challenge for you. Can you think of a time when you followed one of God's commandments? Draw or write about a time you obeyed your parents, told the truth, or chose to be kind. Then, share it with your family. God is always watching over you, just like He watched over the Israelites. He sees your good choices, and He is so proud of you. That's all for today, my amazing friends. But guess what? Our adventure isn't over. Stay tuned for our next exciting Bible story. You won't want to miss it. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you'll be the first to know when our new story drops. See you soon, lovely souls. Bye bye.